Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, a show where we discuss a variety of topics related to insurance, business, and leadership so you can stay protected while growing a thriving business. There are many things in this world that can negatively affect your business, but I got to tell you, the biggest threat to your business is actually happening through your Cat 5 cable and your Wi-Fi router. So today's show, we're going to talk about cybersecurity and why it must be your number one priority. Don't change the station or tap over to another app, because believe me, these threats are real. And in the words of one of my guests off the air, this could cost you your business if you don't have this right. My guests today are
Mike Maddox with ASK.
John Mashni from the law firm of Foster Swift.
Amy Geer with Hoerner and Geer CPAs.
Eric Gestring with the Mardigian Agency.
Mike, your company encompasses all things technology and cybersecurity, IT. That whole world is kind of where you live. Do you think that business owners today really grasp how big this cybersecurity, cyber threats are?
No, Luke, I don't. I think that it's the biggest problem we face, the biggest risk that businesses face today is that they don't really have a grasp of it. I think all business owners and executives are aware that the threat is out there. But I don't think they realize how close it is to them and how much their business is inundated every day with potential threats that could take their business to their knees.
Yeah, it's far more common even than I realized. Here's some stats for our listeners. Over the past 5 years, security breaches have increased almost 70%. For most of our listeners, you're a small business. You think, man, these guys in Russia hacking people's computers don't care about me. Well, half of cyber attacks are on small businesses. The average cost of a cyber crime for an organization is around $13 million per year. That's how much is lost because of these things. And 3/4 of organizations and businesses were phishing targets at some point. And these stats just keep going on and on and on, and the costs keep going up and up and up. So, Mike, what areas are our companies most vulnerable to cyber attacks?
Well, I think you said at the beginning, Luke, that your biggest risk is through your Ethernet cable or your Wi-Fi modem, and it's the thing that business owners need to realize is that every business is under constant attack today. So it's not a matter of the analogy I would use is if you were a criminal robbing a neighborhood and breaking into homes, you would probably break into the nicest home in the neighborhood or the one that you thought nobody was home at. Cyber criminals travel at the speed of light, so they can hit the entire neighborhood at the same time instantly. So they're going to go to everybody's home, small business, large business, it doesn't matter. And, as far as where they're vulnerable everywhere. Everything's connected today. There's, we're a digital world. Your production equipment is connected to the internet. Your servers are connected to the internet. Your smartphones are connected. There's just infrastructure risks everywhere. And then people would be the second area. And we spend a lot of time with our enhanced security services team working with staff of our clientele to educate them on the risks of cybercrime. Why do you have to have two-factor authentication or two ways to get into your applications? I know it's a pain. The more security you have, the less productivity or the less flexibility you sometimes have. So why are we doing this? Education is really important because ultimately most cybercrime hits business through somebody clicking on something they shouldn't have or opening something they shouldn't have. And education helps with that.
Yeah, so I know Farm Bureau, we have this big bold letters in green at the top of our emails that says this email is from outside the Michigan Farm Bureau companies.
Yeah.
And so, pay attention to what you're seeing here because this isn't coming from our CEO if you think it is, that sort of thing.
It's so real that when I was in the military, it was a mandatory monthly training on cybersecurity. So
yeah, and in best practices we found over the years in doing, and as I mentioned earlier, we have an entire team dedicated to nothing but cybersecurity. That's all they do. And what they've learned over the years is the best education has to be continual. It's not the once a year get up and do a training. And we have clients that will ask us to do that, and we do it, but we recommend strongly that they put in place a regular education program.
I agree.
So one of the feedback I get from clients all the time, because we sell a few different companies cyber insurance policies, which covers some of these costs of hiring an ASK or a John Mashni to come in and help with whatever the issue is with your company and your cyber issues. And the feedback I always get is, well, all I have is a website and nobody's going to be able to. And of course, I always follow that up with, well, do you ever take money from clients? Like, do they ever call you with a credit card or pay an invoice? Well, yeah, of course. That's how we stay in business. Well, that's one of the most vulnerable areas of any business is that credit card processing, because that information could be stolen. Amy, a lot of your clients process payments. What conversations are you having with them to ensure that they're protecting that sensitive information and kind of best practices there?
Yeah, this topic is very near and dear to us. Just being an accounting firm, I feel like the cyber attacks could just be targeted right at us. And I don't know if we've ever been the subject of one or anything like that. Luckily, it's a very serious topic for me. So I'm insured as much as I can be. I have IT on it. All of our programs are two-factor. So when I go to clients, and it's not something I don't think that's as conscious as it should be with small businesses, because I will ask, how do you store client credit card numbers? And you're just like, when they open the drawer and there's like a file folder there of paper files, and you don't know, and they can't tell you who their credit card processor is or if they're compliant. It's very scary. And we just take it from a whole internal control standpoint and try to revamp from the insurance side, the computer side, the credit card processing side, just to make sure because all of those pieces have to be in place to be properly secured against the cyber attack.
Absolutely. And John, so let's say that one of Amy's clients does everything they can, but that backup paper file of credit card numbers just does not do the job, and someone gets in and takes some of that information. What's the outcome of what are the consequences of someone getting into your client's information?
Right. Yeah. And again, this is John from Foster Swift. I think the biggest thing I would say is that the landscape is changing so much right now. Cybersecurity is closely linked to privacy, and there are numerous laws that are being passed. I mean, it seems like on a daily basis. There are federal rules about data privacy and specifically relating to cybersecurity breaches. But it's largely sectoral. It's based on the industry that you're in. If you're in some type of financial industry, insurance, healthcare, right, there's going to be different rules that apply. There's also state laws that apply. Specifically, if there's a data breach, you may have a reporting obligation. Right now in Michigan, there is a data breach notification statute where if you're a business and you have access to personal information and it's accessed by a third party in an unauthorized manner, you have potentially a data reporting obligation. And many states are passing new laws. In fact, California just last year passed a very expansive law, and that's kind of sweeping the country. I think just recently, more states are passing laws that even allow people to sue you as a company because you suffered a data breach. So the liability is only increasing for business owners, and it's really aimed to protect consumers. But the bottom line is you have to protect your data no matter what it is, if it identifies people in any way. And it's just, we're getting closer to what Europe has already with GDPR.
When you brought up that companies, especially in Michigan, you remember Target, what was it, like 2 winters ago around Christmas, got compromised?
It's huge.
Yeah, and they had to come out and obviously make it aware to all their guests that they were compromised, and to make sure
they had to offer ID protection.
Yeah.
I think I've had a couple of those so far, unfortunately.
Well, that's one of the aspects that how do you deal with it when it happens? And I know actually Mike and I have dealt with this stuff, or at least Mike's team and I. And what I will say is people don't know how severe of a threat this is until it happens. And they can get up to speed really quickly. There are numerous laws that apply. There's potentially lots of liability. There's reputational harm. And then you think, oh, well, I have insurance, but maybe you don't think you have the right insurance. And so then we're in the situation where we're trying to figure out what you actually have. And by the way, in some places you have to report within a matter of days, and you don't even know what's happening. And so that's where we call someone like ASK and we say, guys, help us out, because as lawyers, we can't figure this out. And then they call us and say, well, help us figure out the legal side of things. It's generally a big mess. And what I will say is that you have to prepare for this. This is not something that you think maybe it won't hit me. It won't affect me. It will absolutely happen to every business. And that's the attitude that you have to take going into it. If you're not ready and have what I call an incident response plan, if you don't have an incident response plan, you're already at massive risk just because you don't know what you're going to do when it happens. You also need other policies in place, privacy policy. Just not having a privacy policy, you could be liable. So thinking about things like that, there are so many risks out there, and it's only increasing. And if you don't have good advisors like the people on this table, you're going to be in big trouble.
Well, it's interesting, okay, so if I'm a listener, I'm going to be skeptical, and everybody's overly optimistic, right? And, hopefully we are, at least in most areas. This isn't going to happen to me. You're more likely to have a cyber attack than you are a fire at your business.
Yeah, Luke, and this is Mike with ASK, and the saying in IT at least is it's no longer a matter of if, it's when, and I truly believe. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Every single business will have a breach. It's just a matter of, are you prepared to respond to it? Do you have an incident response plan? Do you have tools in place that will help you mitigate the damage of that breach? Do you have a good attorney that you can refer to and who can walk you through it? And it comes down to, this has to start at the top. And I tell all of our clients that this is a function of the CEO and the executive team. This has to be core strategy to your business. And if you're not developing a core strategy around cybercrime, you are doing a disservice to your company. And you're, in fact, putting your company at great risk. I mean, there's no greater risk right now to any business than cybercrime.
It was so important to Farm Bureau that, every agent was mandated to have a cyber liability policy because it just became so prevalent and such an issue, and we're handling such sensitive information that we had to. There's no choice. One of the scary things to me was how long it can take for somebody to find out that they even had an attack. Mike, what's the average time between when an attack occurs and when they're actually finding out? about it?
Different studies come out to give you different dates, but it's in months. I mean, it's most cyber criminals, once they're in an organization, are in there for multiple months before before they're discovered or they do anything. And so, and then you get back to reporting laws. That complicates the matter. So if you're mandated to report within a certain number of days and you don't even know about it, that's a problem. And unfortunately, and the sad part about all of this is
you get hit with fines at that point.
Yeah, well, that's what John was talking about. Is that the law is getting to the point where fines are going to apply. And not to mention there are criminal penalties that can apply. Under some of these new laws that are coming out, and the damage to your reputation is the worst probably of all of them. And what's really unfortunate is all of it's very preventable. I mean, there are tools in place that are affordable for all businesses to protect themselves and greatly mitigate the risk. I mean, you can't take it to zero, but you can take it down to a very manageable level.
Yeah, and I think of course, I'm the insurance guy, but I think one of the best ways to mitigate that risk is to transfer it, right? Transfer it to an insurance company, because even if you don't have a plan in place, even if you don't know a good attorney, an insurance company can now pay one to be on your team. So you're going to be a little behind the curve, but you're hopefully aren't going to sink your business at that point. And one of the biggest pieces that I see missing is many cyber insurance policies will just have basically one coverage with one limit. The best policies have multiple coverages with multiple limits. So you're looking at not just $100,000 for, you mentioned reputation and the kind of the PR campaign that you need to put out to protect your reputation. It'll just be $100,000, not just for that. Not including the $100,000 to also help you recover your information or pay ransomware or whatever you have to do. And it starts getting kind of messy because there's just so many options and there's so little information out there about it.
Yeah, our security consultants always recommend cyber insurance. But on top of that, you need the tools, the technology tools, because the insurance is great after the fact and it's going to help you with that financial aspect. But what if you can't get any of your data back, your customer data, your customer list, your invoices, your payables, your receivables? It's going to be tough to go back into business. I mean, you don't really have a business at that point.
Yeah. And I want to add, too, I think Mike hit on something that I think is really underappreciated. This is an executive level strategy and idea that needs to be carried out throughout the entire organization. You really need to perform some type of data audit that says, what data do we have? What personal identifies people? How does it get processed? How does it get transferred? Contractually, when we transfer it to someone else, what type of agreements do we have in place? What type of policies do we have? Even something as simple as sending a wire transfer. There's so much risk inherent in that. And we've seen so many cases where someone says, hey, I sent a wire transfer, but the person didn't receive it. What happened? Well, there was some type of email intercept, and it was wired to essentially a bad guy. there's so much risk.
There is. And for our business owners out there who think, none of this is going to happen to me, you just have to rethink it, and you have to visit our guests on their social media. We have Mike Maddox at ASK, which is justask.net, John Mashni with Foster Swift, Amy Geer with Geer, Hoerner and Associates, and Eric Gestring, and I with the Mardigian Agency. I want to hear from you, go to our Facebook, the Mardigian Agency, or our Instagram at the Mardigian Agency. Tell me what you think. And thanks, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.